you remember Henry Hill from Goodfellas? Right? The mobster who became an FBI informant, famously and terrifyingly and hauntingly portrayed by Ray Liotta. It still freaks me out. Henry Hill was a real person, and in real life, just like in the movies, he turned on his mafia bosses, and then he ended up in witness protection for his own safety, which makes sense given what he'd just done, right? In Henry Hill's case, as it generally does, it worked. Rather than being murdered by the mob for turning state's evidence, Henry Hill ended up dying of natural causes in 2012. The Witness Protection Program is how you disappear after you're known to have helped in the prosecution of a dangerous criminal or criminals. It's run by the U.S. Marshals Service. It also has kind of a cousin in another program that is run by the CIA. It's called the National Resettlement Operations Center. A few years ago, the great FOIA site, unredacted.com, published the first organization chart of the CIA, showing it unredacted under the National Clandestine Service, which reports up to the CIA director. At any given time, this secretive protection program includes, dozens, maybe 100 former spies for our country that need protection here. They get American citizenship. They are asked where they want to live. It's not fail-proof. In one reported instance that told a very dramatic story in the New York Times last year, quote, in one instance, a suspected hitman for Russian intel arrived in Florida and approached the home of one of the CIA's most important informants, a Russian who had been secretly resettled there. The suspected hitman also traveled to another city where one of the informant's relatives lived, raising even more concerns that the Kremlin had authorized revenge on American soil. So this is, I know this is spy movie stuff, but real life, this is scary, dangerous, dark stuff, right? Attempting to protect people who have, at great personal risk, decided to help the U.S. People who have put their lives on the line to gather intelligence from places like Russia or anywhere else in the world in order to help the United States, in order to help the U.S. intelligence community. Well, the news this week from Berlin that, according to U.S. officials, it was the Russian government that tracked down and assassinated a former Chechen rebel, not in Chechnya, not in Russia, but in Germany, in the capital city of Germany, just steps away from the office of the German chancellor. That news, along with the outing of a man who is reported to be a former Russian spy, now living in the U.S. under American protection, after he provided key information to U.S. intelligence for decades, including the key central information that led to the Russian investigation in terms of Russia interfering with our election. Well, the confluence of those two stories, both which have unfolded over the last few days, of course, raised the worry that Russia might go after this U.S. intelligence source who's just been outed, maybe even here in the U.S. A former CIA official, longtime veteran of the CIA, who has worked on resettling defectors, who has been in charge of that, told the Washington Post this week, quote, Putin is very revengeful. Putin will go after these people. Joining us now for the interview is Joseph Augustin. He's a 28-year veteran of the CIA's clandestine service and the former director of the CIA's Defector Operations Center. Mr. Augustin, I am super intimidated to meet you.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Let me ask you, as I'm telling my layman's version of these spy stories, if anything that I've talked about over the last couple segments strikes you wrong, or if any of that seems wrong to you.
I think you got it pretty much right.
Okay.
I'd like to start off by saying that, on this specific case, I didn't know much about this case until the news broke and the rest of the world heard about it. Mm-hmm. That said, the Defector Operations Center at CIA brings in and resettles those people who get in trouble overseas, if you will. And we, according to a little-known law called Public Law 110 that goes back to 1949, the United States government is allowed to bring in up to 100 people a year, which includes family members.
There's a ceiling on it.
There's a ceiling, up to 100, which I can tell you we very rarely get to, if ever. Mm-hmm. But up to 100 people who have provided key information to protect in defense of the United States and its security. Okay, so we in the Defector Operations Center, where we've had these people, and we have them for life, by the way. You mentioned the Marshal Service Witness Protection Program. It's a little bit different. If in the Witness Protection Program, people who stray from the program or do things that are not they're not directed to do, they get kicked out of the program.
I was looking that up today. I was going to also do Sammy the Bull, right? He's another one of these. And I was like, actually, he ended up out of the witness protection program right away and back into a life of crime and back in prison.
Exactly.
You can't do that in the witness protection
program.
program.
We take people in, and we've taken in, I can tell you this, and I'm allowed to tell you this, we have several hundred open cases in the United States of defectors. Now we call them defectors who were brought in because because they were in jeopardy, or there was peril in the fact that they might be exposed or, in fact, be killed.
How good is the U.S. and the CIA in this case at protecting those people? What's the track record like?
Well, it's very interesting because under Putin, and by the way, we bring in not only Russians, right? We bring in others, Chinese, Iranians, North Koreans, and we're responsible for their security for life, all right? And in terms of protecting them, we have a moral responsibility, and I really mean this sincerely. People who work for us in place for that long and take those kind of risks that they take, we want to assure that they are protected, that we take care of them, and they live as good a life as they can for the rest of their lives.
That makes sense to me. The U.S. is making an implicit promise to people when they engage with them, essentially to spy for us, to get information for us, that you have to do this dangerous thing, but we will take care of you, we'll keep you alive as part of the deal.
Exactly.
You have to be able to legitimately and honestly promise that.
Right, exactly. And while I'm no longer in the agency, I can tell you that I and others, we're worried about Russian defectors. Okay, because of Putin. As I said, and you just quoted, Putin is a very vengeful, revengeful individual. He'll come and put people on target lists, and we worry about that. We saw it, and there's a red line that most people think in the United States that Putin will not cross. I, for one, believe he straddles that line as we speak, which means that, this particular individual who was outed, if you will, and was exfiltrated in 2017, I have no concern at this particular point in time that Putin will come and get him now. But what I worry about is a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. He has a wife and 3 kids. He was resettled in this country in true name. Okay, that is not standard operating procedure in the Defector Operations Center. Now it could be, and I have to emphasize, we respect our defectors. We respect these people. And I could see that this person arguing to keep his true name. It's very difficult for defectors when they come to the United States. Let me explain it this way. I think it's an important point. Most of these people had important positions back home. Most of these people never told their spouse what they were doing. They didn't tell their kids what they were doing. And one day, somebody from the CIA, because these people get in trouble. This particular guy, for example, as you said, worked in place for us for 10 years. That's a long time to be a reporting asset. The longer it goes, the more opportunities there are for him to screw up, for us to screw up, which we never do, but for us to screw up, or for him to come under suspicion. That's a long time. Okay. So at this point, and at that point, we decided, after some media things and connecting him and suggesting that he had an important position within Putin's inner circle, that it was time for him to leave.
Yeah, it was time for him to disappear.
So he comes to the United States. He had an important position there. He's now in the United States. Now his kids know. Now his wife knows. He's here living a decent life, but we also tell the kids, and we tell the family, we're going to teach you English. Right? So I know you speak Russian, but we'll teach you English. And then we're going to assimilate you into American society. And the job you had back in Russia, you're not going to have the same kind of job in the United States. And then we're going to say, and this is a very important point, which gets defectors all the time, and I don't blame the defectors for feeling this way, and you have no more contact with anyone back home.
Including your family back home.
Including your family.
Let me stop right here, because I have another element of this that I want to ask you about in terms of the security of this guy moving forward, but I have to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Joseph Augustin is a 28-year veteran of the CIA's clandestine service, former director of the CIA's Defector Operations Center. We'll be right back with him after this.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.